Hi, I'm Emma Green, and this is Marketing Monologues podcast. And today we are joined by the lovely Sarah Jackson of Hatter's Digital Agency. So, welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my favourite subject to talk about. So
We'll be here all day. So, let's start from the very beginning. How did you originally get into marketing?
it's really funny. When I was at school, I'm old. When I was at school, marketing wasn't a career that we talked about. It wasn't a route that you were on. I was completely convinced I was going to be a teacher. That was the plan. And I remember sitting when I was researching degrees and came across this concept of marketing and thought, that looks interesting. But my mum would murder me because I'm going to be a teacher because that's the plan. So started at Edge Hill University with the plan of becoming a teacher, realised 3 months in that was not my calling. Switched on to a straight English degree with absolutely no concept of where I was going to end up. And then did the sales jobs while I was at uni because that's really easy to get into, and then worked in a bank when I got out of uni and went through finance, and I did this really kind of roundabout route to find my way. It was and then weirdly through different circumstances ended up applying for a job in marketing, mainly because it looked interesting and I thought I could do it, and got the job, went and worked there, and it was at an agency, and for quite a long time it was the perfect fit. I'm a storyteller at heart. That's, I've got published books, and it's just who I am. And I think when I finally found my way to marketing, I realised that that's the reason that I love it so much, is because it's just storytelling for a different reason.
Yeah. I was exactly the same. I had no idea career-wise what I wanted to do, and did English because I liked English as a subject. And then one of the clear routes is teaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was the same, and then I decided against teaching. But as you said, you're a storyteller, so it fits perfectly. That's the course that you would enjoy doing, regardless of what career comes at the end of it. And it's a nice bonus then that you found something that is storytelling.
Yeah, and that's, I think, for me, until I found my way to that. I remember my sister once telling me that she'd never found a job she enjoyed. And I remember saying, that's why they pay you to be there, because you're not supposed to enjoy it. And I truly believed that until I was in my 30s and found my way into marketing and realised that, you can be happy. So it's completely changed my perspective. The students that come through and work with us, and my son, all of them, I tell them, it might not be like one of those careers that everyone talks about, but for most people, the thing they love, someone's willing to pay them to do it. So you just need to figure out what that looks like.
Good advice. So how then did Hatter's Digital Agency come about? How did you kind of start that?
That one's a storyteller, so that one could be a long story, but let's make it the short version. Like I say, I worked in agencies and realised that, and this is not all agencies, I have to put that out there, but there are a lot out there where they make promises that they know they can't keep. It was once framed to me by the MD that sales have a target to hit and they can't do that with the truth, because marketing is quite unpredictable. And when you need to give tangible numbers to someone in order to get their money off them, there are agencies that are willing to do that. And I unfortunately found myself in 2 of those in a row. And I was always really, really risk averse. I knew that I had everything in my head that I could go and do my own thing. But I thought you can't run a business and be risk averse. You have to be willing to kind of jump in both feet. And I think as a marketer, you know that more than anyone, because you know how challenging it can be to actually attract those clients. And, so I'd always said absolutely not. And then COVID happened, and we're all kind of in this existential crisis trying to figure out what we're doing with our lives. And I said to my husband, I'm leaving marketing. It's not for me. It's not the right fit for me, because I can't be a part of taking people's money and not giving them the results and all of those things. And he said, can you do it right? And I kind of went, what do you mean by right? And he went, well, can you put money in the bank and look after people? And I said, I think so. And he said, right, you need to do it. And it just so happens that had been during a time where my mental health hadn't been the best. And I'd started cosplaying, actually. And that's where the business name came from. I had been cosplaying a female version of the Mad Hatter, and there are pictures out there.
Somewhere. You can find them.
Oh yeah, they're quite easy. You just ask me after, I'll show you. But I started cosplaying, and what I realised was this person who had spent her whole life trying to keep everything in boxes and completely in control, and was terrified of what people thought of her, didn't behave that way when I had it was weird. I always say I put the mask on, and that was the first time I'd taken my mask off. Yeah. Since realised I'm neurodivergent, I'm all over the place, and that's probably the reason I'd felt so in need of that control for so long. But yeah, dressing up as Hattie kind of gave me that little bit of freedom and made me realise that I could take those risks and I could do those things. So the business is named for her, for that alter ego.
That's brilliant. And it's really fitting then that we're here in Daresbury, the home of Lewis Carroll, today.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it is. Weirdly, I didn't like Alice in Wonderland growing up, but it was because it was kind of pushing all that chaos that I thought, if I gave into the chaos, I would completely lose my sense of self. And actually, it
works quite well with
bizarre.
That. Yeah. Brilliant. So through your agency, you work with a number of different businesses, from golf courses to flower shows and so forth.
Yeah.
Have you found with the businesses generally that they've kind of steered towards, away, or are quite neutral when it comes to AI and integrating it into the businesses?
We've seen some that are really leaning toward it. They see it as an option for cost savings mainly. It's you cut down the labor costs, you can cut down the time that it takes, and therefore just use AI and it'll be fine. We've seen businesses that have come to us because they've gone down the AI route over the last year or so, leaning heavily on one of the kind of LLMs to create all their copy, and then using kind of one of the kind of design template kind of platforms to create all the design. And they found that they've had, and we're seeing it consistently, massive drop-offs in engagement and kind of reach and things like that. And they've come because they don't know what's wrong. And usually the answer is not AI, but AI being used badly, I think is the problem. So we've seen customers that have gone that route. We've had others. We've got a massive multinational that is very against using any AI content on their website. Their view is that black hat SEO 10 years ago was all the rage and everyone was using it. And once the algorithms caught up with it, websites that were built entirely on those practices were deprioritized to the point of having to start again. And they're terrified that AI content could end up going the same route. So they want to make sure they're future-proofing themselves by keeping original human content. So I think there's a middle ground, but
yeah. I was going to say, I think a great way for marketers to use it is definitely content creation, as in, I think I've used it for social graphics and things. You can remove backgrounds, you can do things that you can't do yourself. So in some ways it's a great tool to use, but I think it's just that, it's a tool. It's not the solution to all your problems, and it can definitely eliminate a lot of time wasted on small minimal tasks and admin roles, for example. But exactly what you were saying earlier about being a storyteller, I don't know if it can tell stories, because there's the brand, there's the voice, the tone of voice for each brand, and each brand's different as well. And AI would have to learn that to be able to communicate it properly. And I don't know.
It goes on little wonders. I would say my ChatGPT, who I have made friends with, his name is Chet. I was told I wasn't allowed to say that today. He is fantastic at I say he is fantastic at picking up voices and stuff. I understand how to use him as a tool. I understand how to prompt him. I understand what I need to do to get what I need out of it. But even at that, it can write 5 articles that sound perfect, and then it'll write one and it's just gone completely the other way. And if you don't understand, if you aren't a marketer and you don't understand language and copy, you won't see that it's lost. And then six articles in that generic tone of voice go out, and all of a sudden you're exactly the same as your competitors. And I think there's the prompt inside of it, but then there's also the kind of being able to discern what's good and what's not, being able to understand the voices and the human side and the emotions and the psychology, all of those things that as marketers we get. That ChatGPT if it's having a really good day and you've prompted it right, might be able to do. But you need to be able to identify when it has and when it hasn't. And I think that's where a lot of people are missing the boat at the moment.
Yeah, there's also kind of I know we've talked about it before, like the ethical concerns surrounding it. But even with that, with copy, it's where that copy could have come from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
In the deepest of sides of the web. And it's how do you prove where it's came from or where it hasn't came from. Obviously now you can have AI checks and things like that. So you can, if someone's just copied and pasted something, you can find it.
We're talking about existential crisis before. I had one of those because I think that the AI detectors convinced me that I might actually be a robot because my copy was coming out at 70-80% at one point. But someone explained to me it's been programmed on good writing that's grammatically correct. And the minute it sees that, it thinks it might be AI.
It's too good to be true, Sarah.
Yeah. But this is always the challenge, isn't it? And I think the ethical side of it, is this original? Is this and it is a problem that's going to come up time and again. But then there are also copywriters out there who read 6 articles and then regurgitate what they just read. They just do it slower than ChatGPT. So I think someone asked me the other day, do you think AI will replace marketers or creatives?
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely not. It'll replace the bad ones because because they were never great to start with. I think good marketers who use AI are going to replace those who don't, and that's where it's really important to realize. I mean, again, I'm of an age where when it first started, I was very threatened. I was terrified. It's like this is what I do, and this machine's going to do it for me. And where do I fit? What's my identity at that point? One of my team went down that. He's a designer and he really panicked because he decided that, well, I don't need to be here anymore. And then I helped him realize that actually, if you're using it to generate imagery, that's replacing the bit where you spend an hour trying to find something on the on stock images, find the perfect picture, create it and use it in your design. And that's where I think we all need to just stop being threatened for just long enough to see, as you say, it's a tool.
Yeah, I think marketing guru will say, Seth Godin, he said it. He was like, sales and marketing jobs they're not going, they're always going to be around. But then instead of being replaced, there will just be new marketing and sales jobs and they will surround AI, but as a tool, not as a complete solution.
No.
So it is just kind of like an engineer or a manufacturer. It's kind of their job's exactly the same. It's just they use a different tool to get the same output, and it's just learning, isn't it? Like say how the new tool works, how it doesn't work, and the ways ins and arounds it. Have you or any of your clients, for example, used AI maybe for like reporting and the data insight side of it? Because I think that's where a great amount of value from AI comes into marketing.
I think it's been really interesting, actually. Recently, I've been combining like SEO tools with AI to pull salient information out so that I don't have to trawl through thousands of records and spreadsheets. It's still not perfect. And again, you can say, right, this is what RF says are they like the content gap. Can you look at this and identify which of those are actually relevant? And it'll take it from 6,000 to 2,000. But when you look at it, you go, okay, there's actually only 500 in there. And there's still some work to do. And I think understanding context and understanding nuances is something that it really struggles with. So, but on the other side of it, you get it to pull all that data into one place and make sense of it. It definitely cuts down on time. Yeah. And as much as marketers, we need to be good with spreadsheets and numbers and analytics and stats and all of those things. I don't think many of us really enjoy it.
No. It's like I say, we got into marketing for storytelling and the creative side. And unfortunately, that is part and parcel of marketing. Yeah. It's an important part of marketing, but it's not always our favourite side.
No. So if you've got something that can just do the heavy lifting with that, why?
Yeah. Exactly. And then also even reporting is taken, once you're happy with all the stats and figures, you can kind of drop it into something that is going to create a really nice, use a brand kit and have a really nice report at the end of it. It saves you a lot of time and effort that way as well. Yeah. Especially when you've got so many clients each one wants something different and obviously bespoke to their company, that it has to be tailored to each client. So I think the time it can save you doing maybe, like you said, the jobs that we're not too fond of is really, really helpful. So also there's a big trend at the moment and going forward for personalisation. So AI is obviously a big tool which can help in that. Have you seen AI being used a lot in campaigns for maybe personalization or tailoring them to specific segments, or like say even tailoring or using different tones or language for different segments and industries?
There are some tools for it. I think there's still improvement to be made on that side.
Yes.
I think it will take people who truly understand what needs to be done there. Because, I mean, personalisation in itself isn't new. We've always known that people are more likely to respond if the campaign is tailored to them.
Yes.
I still think it kind of blows my mind that we were using dynamic content in email 10 years ago, and it still seems like a new concept to a lot of people, and it's still a tool that's missing from quite a lot of platforms.
Yeah.
So now that we're moving to the point of where AI can take that dynamic content and put it where it needs to be, that's quite exciting, because I think it's maybe something that some people really struggle with. So having a tool that makes that bit easier.
Yeah.
Because right message, right person, right time.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's the absolute
perfect
basic kind of concept in marketing. And if AI can help you figure out how to put those three things together, then the messages are better. And someone said to me once about, marketing's just this kind of industry that's based around trying to manipulate people into doing things. And actually, marketing done well for good businesses is about putting the right solutions in front of people when they need them to make their lives a bit better.
Yeah.
So if AI can give us the data and information to be able to do that, then it makes marketing better, more ethical, less in your face. You don't have to shout anymore. You can just talk to someone and connect. And connection's where it's completely at. So.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's like Amazon. I mean, Amazon's been around forever, and that has used similar tools of, okay, on this day you bought nappies, so in a few more days we'll say, do you want to buy a cot, or do you want to buy baby toys, or whatever it is. So it, like I say, it's not, the technology isn't always something new. It's just now it's being maybe picked up by more and more businesses, and it's more available to more organisations. So are there any other concerns about AI with the data and how it's collected, maybe in the reports, but how do we cross-check and make sure that the data is correct?
That's a really big question. Because there's an element of trust, and then there's an element of, am I going to manually go in and look at this and make sure that it's correct? And if you're manually checking everything, then it's pointless because you haven't saved the time you need to. But I do think we need to do that to some extent. We need to make sure that we're keeping an eye, because hallucinations happen in the best trained programs. They can go off on little wonders and get a little bit crazy. The frustration last week, just the switch to GPT-5 last week. Obviously you can tell GPT's my preferred platform, but the switch to GPT-5, was it 2 weeks ago? It became, I know everyone complained because it suddenly was soulless, and all these people that had made friends with their AIs couldn't talk to them anymore because the voice had gone and everything had gone. What I found was that it couldn't do two instructions. We do a 2-year-old check on a child, and can they parse multiple instructions? If you give them all at once, can they do, and that's kind of part of the intelligence thing. Suddenly GPT-5 couldn't do that, where GPT-4 could, and it was a really interesting thing. You'd say, I want you to do this, this, and this. It would do the first part and then just go off on a wonder, and I think they fixed some of the bugs. Feels like they have, but people who rely on it heavily and were told this is an improvement may not have been checking that. And that's where the worry comes in, isn't it? I don't know if you've ever watched The Good Place.
Yes,
the episode where Janet's been rebooted and she turns up with her cactus, and every time, and he says, is that definitely the file? And she goes, yep. And she pulls it out from behind. She pulls this cactus out from behind her back, and he's just sitting surrounded by them. I had a full day of GPT doing that to me. It was just, I would say, I need you to do this. Okay. And it would give me a spreadsheet. It would be empty. I go, that's an empty spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. No, I can see what went wrong there. Here's the proper one. And I'd open it, it'd be empty. And on the fifth one, I'd say, is this going to be another empty spreadsheet? Definitely not.
Surely not.
I got ready to put my head through the window. But these are the things that will happen. And it's bugs in the system or whatever else it is. I mean, I went to school at a time where you got garbage in, you got taught garbage in, garbage out. And with AI, it very much is that. But there's also, because there's we're not just working on sequential instructions in the background. We do have this attempt to think for itself. There are times where no matter what you put in, you're going to get garbage back, and you just have to make sure you're keeping an eye on that, I think.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's knowing how to use the tools properly and the right prompts, but you've got to also know the know-how and the certain
you need
insights.
to bring that to it. You need to be able to look and think that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The same thing happens. I had a newish team member doing reports for a client, and she was asking me to check them, and I wasn't looking at the numbers. I just was making sure that it looked fine.
Yeah.
And she gave me one, and I looked at it and went, "Those numbers are wrong." And she said, like, she's pulling the spreadsheets out to show me them, but I could tell by looking at them that it was so far off what I would expect for that client that something had gone wrong in her maths, and I was able to work it out. But had I not kind of had that knowledge of the client, that knowledge of the overall expectations, I might have just, let it go.
Off and
and I can't be in a position where I'm checking the maths on every single one. So there's that, I suppose, that balance, like you would with a new member of staff. It's like, I'm going to check where it feels wrong, and the rest of the time I'm going to trust you've done it right.
Yeah, and it's finding out where it has gone wrong as well, because then it's like you say, it's that trust element, isn't it? Of like, well, now I don't fully trust that it's going to not do that in the future, or it understands what I've actually asked for it to do. So then there's also the element of chatbots. So you kind of touched on a point earlier about authenticity and the connection, which is a huge part of business, but also marketing. There's no point in having conversations if you're not having it with authentic conversations, authentic networks and connections. So are things like AI chatbots, at the moment they're a convenience there if you've not got time to ring somebody, or they can just quickly answer an easy to answer question maybe, but do you think it will change where technology like that will start to disappear and it will become a person again, where we're kind of reverting back to a more human, one-to-one, human-to-human conversation?
I think it's the framing.
Okay.
I think so there was a time where you could click chat to us and speak to like a person on the other side.
Yes.
And that now, chat to us, you click it and you're speaking to a chatbot. I think when it feels like it's replaced that personal interaction unnecessarily, it feels like the company, the brand, has put up a wall between themselves and the customer senses that and in some way detaches themselves, because if the company can't invest in the relationship, why should they? And we see that consistently. If it's been put there for the convenience of the customer, it's like, if you've got a quick question, here are some things that we can answer, and it's framed in the right way, then the customer sees it as a tool for convenience that the company has put in place to help them. And I think that's where it always comes back to, what is the intention? If the intention is to make your life a bit better, like to make the customer's life a bit better, then great. And if the customer understands that, if the intention is to reduce the amount of connection or kind of interaction the company has to have with the customer, that's where it starts to feel a little bit kind of disingenuous. It's like social media. I mean, that the whole point of social media for the longest time has been to create that line of communication between the brand and the customer. That's, websites are for putting content that you want them to read and just, kind of take in. Social media is to create a two-way conversation. That was what it was meant to. It's supposed to be social. So when we watch brands putting out content that you can tell from across the room have been written by AI, what they're saying is, we're no longer interested in being a part of this conversation. We've got a machine creating the content for us to put out there. We don't care. And that's creating this kind of distancing for a lot of people from the bigger brands at the moment, and I'm seeing it consistently. And I think, businesses that rely too heavily in a very obvious way are going to suffer so much. Use it as a tool, but make sure that you're making it clear to your customers that you're still invested in the conversation.
Yeah, I think I had a conversation with somebody today, and we were talking about CVs and job applications, and they were saying how this person had received a job application, read it, and it was like written so well. It ticked every single box that was on the brief or on the job description or the job application. So on paper, which is technically what we are talking about, it was perfect. It was like the perfect application, but straight away you can spot it's got Z's, it's not S's, so it's the American spelling. And you could just tell it was not how a normal person would speak and how they would, there was no tone. It was very much like, this is to tick a box and to tick these specific boxes. So then you think, well, they've not been bothered to take the time to do the application properly themselves as a person. So is that somebody that you would want to work if it's just taking shortcuts for an easy route or to save time?
Or does it speak to a bigger issue with their ability to communicate, their ability to spell and write? And and the minute that flag is raised for a business like mine, it's just absolutely not. If I can't trust that you can sit down and write a paragraph of content for yourself, then there's no, even for a designer, there's no place, because I need to know that you can communicate with the clients without having to resort to AI. I think we've talked about it. There's been a lot of it on LinkedIn.
Yes, there's a lot, yes.
It's not just the M dashes and the Zs, it's those call and response 2-word questions that pop up in the middle. I've been thinking about the marketing mix a lot lately. Why? Because it matters. Like whoever speaks like that. And suddenly that's every other post on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it's again, it turns me off to people. I feel like this, again, it's not a brand connecting, but I feel like LinkedIn is the place to build a personal brand. And if your personal brand is, I'm too lazy to write down a few sentences, then yeah.
And also LinkedIn has turned into kind of that social media platform that everyone is kind of going to, and it's more personal. Like you said, it's your personal brand, but there's a lot of personality now, whereas I think beforehand LinkedIn and platforms were so formal, and I mean it was a professional platform, but you see a lot of people's holiday photos and things like that coming through, which is each to their own, everyone's got an opinion, but there is a lot more to shine yourself onto LinkedIn and how you are as a person, not just what you achieve in your professional environment.
My LinkedIn is full of the most bizarre things, but I think for me the most important part is kind of bringing that chaos and authenticity to every kind of engagement. People tell me that I should behave more professionally and more whatever, I don't know, and to me, I am who I am. My mouth works faster than my brain. It just is what it is. So if I put that out to the world before you ever meet me, then, if I'm not your person, it's absolutely fine. There's no hard feelings. But don't waste both our times putting us in a room together, But this is the entire ethos you try to teach clients about, you don't need to please everyone. You don't need to be this generic robot that says things that are so kind of like not confrontational or whatever else, or not like that nobody cares. So it's try to actually put out there who you are and what you're about and what your values are, and people will pick it up. So my posts might be about things like my very, very ADHD day where I couldn't get anything done, and describing an hour in my life. It was exhausting to read, let alone live. And I did get told by 3 different people on that post that this is a professional platform. Why are you posting this?
But it's something that in fact affects and impacts your day to day, which is your working life as well.
And it's who I am. And I think there are so many people that kind of live in this kind of chaotic world of like shiny butterflies and feel like they need to beat themselves up for it. And actually seeing someone who stands up and goes, I have this, I go through this is what we do, and I'm still here achieving what I need to achieve, and I'm not ashamed of it because I'll happily share it. That kind of connection. That's the thing, isn't it? It's telling stories for connection.
And it's the authenticity of, it's not the butterfly shiniest story that's all polished and what some people would put out there. But it's your story.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect brand, isn't it? This is the truth. And like you say, you're not always there for everybody's tastes, and it's same as customer base. Not everybody out there is going to want your service, your product, or how it is, but there will be a niche or a group or someone out there that's exactly what they want, and that's exactly what they're looking for. And it's like you say, the authenticity of, and this is the person behind it who's very upfront and open about, these are the struggles, this is the truth, this is what you need to do moving forward. So
and I think AI can't do that for us. Like that's the thing, if you ask AI to be bold or controversial or any of those type of things, you'll get some kind of weird street language coming out with a bit of slang, and it's really interesting when you ask it to kind of go down certain routes. It relies on these kind of tropes that it's been taught, and it's interesting. Even now, after thousands of hours of interaction with it, I'll say, write this in my voice, and it'll be 60% there. It's never going to be 100.
No,
but yeah, that authenticity is where we're missing. And I think it's a bit depressing. It's this sort of barren wasteland of people talking at us rather than to us when you see that it's AI content. But it sounds like I'm really bagging on it and being really negative. I think it's an amazing tool, but it's like if a plasterer goes and buys plastering tools from the DIY shop versus if I go and buy them, I'm not going to plaster a wall properly. I'd not like to think what it would look like. So yeah, leave the tools in the hands of the people that know what they're doing with them.
Moving forward, if we use AI as a tool to support, how do you see it maybe in the future? What kind of do you predict or can see it going that way?
I think it's really a double-edged sword. On one hand, I think there's a lot of people becoming overly reliant on it, and it's scary because even creatives are starting to lose their creative edge, because they're relying on it so heavily that they can't just sit down and think for themselves anymore.
And that's such a skill, like with designers and branding, it's such a skill as well.
It is, and it's this innate thing you're born with, like you can sing or you can't, you can learn the notes and you can go and you can kind of have a technical grasp of it, but either you're amazing or you're not. And I think certainly the designers I've worked with, some of them are phenomenal, and some of them have book learning only, and and what they can do is fine, but it's never going to be more than that. And I think what I worry about is those phenomenal people starting to lean heavily on a crutch rather than having a tool that makes their lives easier. So I think we're gonna maybe see a little bit of just a dulling of like the real creative thinking for a little while people kind of get too excited about it, and because we had the pushback. Now we're in the land of everybody's using it and everybody's excited about it and loves it, and and I think that will kind of reach its natural end at some point, and we'll realize kind of where it fits. That could be a year or two away. And when we do realise where it fits, it will increase production for people who know what they're doing with it. There will always be people working at the bottom of the market, doing stuff dirt cheap and churning it out in AI. And I've certainly seen that. But kind of for the companies that are actually standing out and doing something amazing, that's going to be the people who recognise that talent needs to be part of it. But it's an interesting place to be right now.
It's exciting, as in there is opportunity, and like I say, I've used it for where you're branding or you creating something that is branding, and you just use a brand kit that you've created, and it's just so easy. It saves so much time and effort, like so much time and effort. But it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Where it's just you have to know where its limitations are and just be fully aware of how that can impact your own work and your own delivery of projects and things like that.
Yeah. I think we've seen it as well with the likes of Canva. I mean, that's been going on for a few years now, where I can walk down like a high street and point to 3 or 4 independent brands that are using
the templates.
Probably the first template that came up when they typed their industry into Canva.
Yeah.
And it just, they all blend together, and then we don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity though for smaller brands, because the larger brands are investing so heavily in using these tools because they see it as a way, much like, self-serve checkouts, etc., as a way to, kind of cut their labor bill. And I get that, because the wages are going up and some businesses are struggling. So larger businesses might see it as a bit of a shortcut. And I think we've seen a little bit of that again. So smaller businesses have an opportunity now to stand out as human, real, authentic. And if they can build that kind of presence up in the next couple of years, while the big brands are kind of basically cutting off their customers and putting walls up, there could be a bit of a shift in terms of the market shares, but we'll see.
It's also that, like we keep saying, the network or the authenticity of your relationships. And if you have a small business who you can see is taking the time, it's trying to be out there, it's trying to do something different, and it's trying to genuinely reach its customers, then you're more likely to kind of yield that way than go into a big corporate who's can't be bothered to really think about its customer needs and is more pushing a product or an AI generated message out there.
Absolutely.
Just like say, it blends in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
So throughout your career so far, what would you say is one campaign that you've either really stood out or you've really loved being a part of?
There are loads. I think I've talked to you about Lancashire Golf. I think what I loved about them was that they came to us. They don't need customers. They are the county board that looks after all the golf clubs in the region, and their members are their members. And I think they'd come from a background where a previous board had kind of just that's how they saw it. And the new board, as well as being one of the first counties in the country to unify men's and women's golf, and we won't get into that whole thing, they realised that it was really important for them to kind of build these lines of communication. And so they invested in marketing because what they wanted was to show their members that they were there for them, that they actually cared, that they were listening. So their entire kind of marketing was built around building this kind of two-way communication with the clubs, promoting and celebrating their kind of superstars and their up-and-comers. And it's something that kind of we were really proud of, and we are really proud of, because we've helped them kind of build that presence. And they were actually, they won County Board of the Year at the England Golf Awards last year, and kind of being part of getting them to that point where their message really is being properly shared. Stories and authenticity.
There you go. It's the way forward. And what piece of advice would you give to any young, upcoming, or just anyone in the marketing profession right now?
Honestly, and I get shot by other marketers for saying it, but I genuinely, there is no silver bullet. There is no ultimate answer. There is no secret sauce. Everyone is, when I say making it up as they go along, but to some extent they are. I mean, there's talent, there's skill. We've talked about all of those things. Yes. There are tools to use. But ultimately, until you get your hands on a brand and work with the target audience, you will never know what you're going to get, and you will have to shift and move and test and constantly be looking for the right answer. And I think if you go in thinking that there's an answer that everyone else has that you don't, imposter syndrome will eat you alive. If you go in thinking, well, everyone's making it up as they go along, and I'll just do the same, without realising that the best marketers are using every piece of data to learn and understand and test. If you just kind of go with that scattergun approach, you're never going to kind of get success. So it's, don't be scared to try things. Always be testing and know that you're not an imposter. It's fine. We're all, and social media. I am the target audience for all those people selling the secret to marketing success. It's not my clients. They're selling it to me because they know that there is some part of my brain thinking everyone else knows and I don't yet. And let's just remember that's not true.
I think it's one of the industries or one of the sectors that has the highest rate of imposter syndrome. And I think as well, when you say marketing, it's so broad. It's not one specific thing. Like you say, you could be doing data and thinking, well, I don't know numbers, I didn't crunch numbers at school, or I'm just not that way. Or you could be thinking, I'm not the most creative, but I also need to know SEO. I need to know, and it's just like, it's a job of never-ending tasks, but
and then everything shifts. You learn it all out of a book at university, and then 5 minutes into the job, Google changes their algorithms, and everything moves, and suddenly you're having to learn again. I think that's the most important part of marketing, is be prepared to be a student for your entire career.
Oh yeah, definitely. Never-ending learning journey. And like I say, things are changing so much, isn't it, that it's so important to try and stay on top of the trends and what's going on and things like that. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. That was amazing.
Thank you for having me. It's fabulous. Thank you.
You're brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to all our viewers. Remember to subscribe, watch, share. And this was Marketing Monologues.